Money, money, and money. It seems we women don't talk enough about money. Is this true for you? Today's episode is all about female funding, female investing, the gender gap, startups, and money, and two co-founders who share a mission to grow women investors. And this is the first time that I had not one, but two women guests on my podcast. It was an absolute riot. Hello and welcome to Season 3 of the Womenpreneur Asia podcast, and I'm your host, Krista Gun. I'm also an entrepreneur, author, marketeer, storyteller, and connector. As the host of Womenpreneur Asia, I talk to Asian women entrepreneurs to uncover their personal stories of grit, hope, and transformation. These are real stories of courage and optimism from inspiring yet down-to-earth women in business across Asia. This episode is brought to you by my company, Redbox Studio. Today, I'm speaking to Tanya Rolfe and Christine Yu, two out of the three founders of Sophia. Sophia is a learning platform made for women with the mission to increase the amount of venture capital funding and angel investment funding for women entrepreneurs. It is a mission born out of their frustration and experiences in the financial world. Christine's career has spanned tech startups, electronic trading, capital markets, and banking. She is now an impact investor, angel investor, and venture builder in the sustainability and social impact arena. Tanya is a venture capitalist whose previous engagements included starting her own seed venture fund in Singapore, investing in female-founded, scalable businesses across Southeast Asia. We spoke about why women don't talk enough about money and why they should. We spoke about how to inject more women into the investing ecosystem and how women can become angel investors. Now onwards to the episode. Hi, Tanya and Christine. Welcome to Womenpreneur Asia.
Hi, thanks for having us.
Hi, Krista. Such a pleasure to be on the show.
This is the first time I have two instead of one guest on my show.
We're flattered.
We're pioneers.
Yes, you are. Yes, the both of you are. So, the first question, how did the both of you meet?
That's a good question. I think that the interesting thing about how Tanya, myself, and our other co-founder, Nicole, met is I think when, people care about the same issues in life, and I think all three of us are very much focused on gender equality, the gender investing gap, female founders, female investors. I think it really brings together special people. And I think so through our work, we kind of found each other. So I think Nicole knew Tanya through her work with her capital, and Nicole, who's the founder of Next Chapter Raise, a platform for female founders. And I think through that, I met Tanya myself, and we really started, having these deep conversations about, how we're going to fix early stage investing and make sure that we're getting not only more women funded, but that we're actually also making sure that we get more women making investing decisions.
Yeah, absolutely. I echo that. And I think that because there's so few women in the space as well, you do tend to all know each other. So our names were coming across each other's desks multiple times, or screens, should I say, multiple times over the years. And so it was inevitable that we would come together with the shared mission that we have.
And now that we've listened to that part of the story, where are both of you physically located?
I'm in Singapore.
Hong Kong. Oh, sorry. Go for it, Tanya.
Sorry. I'm in Singapore,
and I'm in Hong Kong.
And is it difficult when you're both located in different countries?
I think there's pros and cons. I mean, I think I've actually never physically met Tanya, which is kind of crazy when I think about it. But at the same time, I think with how we're using technology to collaborate, to connect, communicate. It's not a stretch. But yeah, do I want to go and have a glass of wine with Tanya? Absolutely. And one day we'll get to do that.
I really hope. It's actually, I mean, we're on the same time zone, right? Which helps massively for us because Nicole and Christine are both based in Hong Kong. So we're on exactly the same time zone. And we, especially in the last 18 months, was been shown, it's shown even with founders of investments that I have here in Singapore, I haven't met them for, and they maybe live 5-6 miles away. So because of restrictions here. So it's no different actually. And we spend a lot of time like this, looking at each other across a screen. So yes, we haven't met. I will be inviting Christine and Nicole to raffles for a Singapore sling as soon as the travel bubble is open.
Wow, we're going to be waiting a long time, Tanya.
This is the face of optimism.
I know. You're right. It's just around the corner.
Just around the corner.
Okay, so now tell us about the business that you both started. Now, that will be the interesting part. Both of you who live in two different countries, have not met physically yet, are starting a business together. So tell us what that business is all about.
Am I going?
Yeah, go.
Okay. So Sophia is an education platform for women. It's a brand new platform to the market, and because Christine, Nicole, and I, we all recognized and we came together over a shared mission of trying to increase the amount of venture capital funding and angel investment funding to women entrepreneurs, and we believe that that's the way to do that is to have more diverse investors. So if we have a diverse base of capital allocators, so those making the investment decisions, then we believe that we will have more diverse founders receiving funding for their businesses. We want to see, more women entrepreneurs funded. And we believe that we do that through educating and empowering women. And that's not because we believe that women have got a gap that men don't have per se, or they received a different type of education than women did. It's more that women and men, equally, and this is the world over, financial education, personal finance education is globally terrible. It's almost non-existent, I think, in most countries for men or for boys and for girls. But there's a difference, because something happens, and the difference between men and women is that men somehow come together and start talking about investing and deals and deal sharing and networking. And they're very good at networking, very good at introducing each other to, a founder, to an investor. And women, generalizing statement here, but women are just not that comfortable with doing that. And we've got some ideas around why that might be. But what we've discovered throughout, Christine, Nicole, and I separately through our own work, we've all had previous businesses and some of us still do. We discovered that there was this gap, and that if we could plug that gap through creating an ecosystem, an environment that is inclusive, that is in language that people can understand, it's not off-putting, full of financial jargon. And if we can do that, and we can empower women with the skills they need to take control of their personal finances and give them the confidence to start investing, then we believe that this is the answer to a lot of the challenges that we see in the ecosystem, and just creating more women investing and more women taking control for financial freedom for themselves.
I think just to add to what Tanya said, and absolutely 1000%, of course, I agree with Tanya on this. And I think something that there's a lot of cultural kind of, not issues, but I think cultural factors, that come into play. I think that women don't talk enough about money. It's somehow a bit of a taboo topic, or it's just been, it's not the cultural norm. So I think that with Sophia, we really want to normalize the culture of talking about money, talking about investments, and make it something that is a natural part of the cultural framework of when women get together, that we talk about all aspects of our lives, including our investing lives.
And why do women not talk about money? Is it like just because it's a taboo thing? It's like we don't want to go into things we don't know? Is
I think
What
there's
are
a
some of
couple
your
of reasons. And, obviously, I think when you take a look at, especially with the cultural context in Asia, I think that, um, when you think of kind of most Asian families, the mother does the budget, right? It's gets, the money control on the budgeting side, the revenue side of the business. A lot of the times, and again, generalization, but a lot of the times that's handed over to the father or the male. And so um, I think that's kind of the cultural kind of framework. But even just thinking from a global context, I was telling this to Tanya and Nicole, I don't have, even to this day, that many women who I talk to about money. But that is increasing more and more now because I make a point that I should talk about it and I want to talk about it. So I think it's also part of just the way there's like a lot of social conditioning, kind of that is gender based, unfortunately. And I think we need to continue to just, push for change.
Yeah, can I add to that as well? I think that also, and I've mentioned this a few times before, but I think that we have to remember that, the financial ecosystem, like the roles that are held within financial services, are largely held by men. And I think that what that does is, as a woman, if you're, let's say, you want to join an angel investment network and start angel investing, and I walk in as Tanya into a room of 47 men, and there's just me, it isn't welcoming, right? It isn't necessarily a place that I feel comfortable, and it isn't where I want to be. So we need to see women in this space to feel comfortable, not because we only feel comfortable with women, but we feel comfortable where there's a representation and diversity. And so we need to see more women in this space, for women to have the confidence to enter it, and to try to bite-sized chunks, but to enter it and to continue to learn and develop. So I think that we have to remember that finance industry has been largely dominated by men for since it began, and women are still relatively new to the workforce. So we need to almost address all of this at the same time. So creating more roles for women-led, women leading in these roles within the finance industry, and educating and empowering women to start to enter it as well in a comfortable and safe way.
So what are some of the offerings or products from Sophia that other women can get excited about?
So we have a really exciting selection of different ways to learn with Sophia. So we have tracks for novice and experienced investors. In terms of formats for learning, we have a digital several digital curricula rather, that kind of women can purchase and learn from. We have cohort-based programs. We're looking to also roll out a series of other offerings, like a membership program as well. So Tanya, maybe if I've missed anything out, feel free to add.
No, I think just to elaborate on what you've said, Christine, is that what we recognize is that women are, we're not all the same just because we're women. So, some of us want to learn on the subway or the MTR or the MRT, depending on where you are, and, and watch an app, download your app and look at on your way to work. I'm dreaming of a day when we're traveling to work. You can watch and learn that way. Some women like to be surrounded by women that look like themselves and are relatable, and will want to do cohort-based learning. So we'll want to come and be in, physically be part of a group of women learning. And I think so. So we're trying to cater for everybody's needs. And then we're starting with our sort of hero product, our first product, which is really the product that brought Christine, Nicole, and I together, which was this need to inject more female investors into the ecosystem. So we're starting with what we consider to be the most needed and the most pressing of all of our, suite of products. And that is the, startups, angel investing, venture capital, and really guiding and educating women on in that space. And there's many, many different products that come off of that feed into, financial wellness, as we call it. And so those products will follow. But we're starting with what we consider to be the most needed.
And where you see that the both of you plus Nicole could add your value, right?
Absolutely. We have, yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about your backgrounds. The both of you have very interesting backgrounds. And as I was doing my research on Tanya and Christine, I was thinking, each of you merit your own episode. That's so much from the both of you. So, but because you're co-founders of Sophia, I had to get the both of you together because there will be an interesting perspectives from two sides, right? And one from Singapore and one in Hong Kong. So let's start with Christine. Christine, talk to us a little bit about your background and how you came to this eventually in Sophia, but I'm sure there are many other things in your life before Sophia happened.
Sure. So, I like to say that my current career right now is at the intersection of innovation, profit, and purpose. But I like to also say that I grew up on a trading floor. So I spent the majority of my career in sell-side capital markets. So I was a credit salesperson for a large multinational bank, large global bank rather, in Hong Kong and New York. And I think this really prepared me actually in a strange way for entrepreneurship because, when people think of finance or banking, they think of a cubicle, they think of, conference rooms. But, when you're on a trading floor, it's kind of like this giant room, a lot of people screaming, a lot of people on the phone. And you're each of you actually managing your own business really as a self-starter in a way. Yes, you have a franchise. Yes, you're on a bank balance sheet, but you're really managing your own brand, your own presence, your own client base, your own book. So I think it really prepared me. It kind of sowed the seeds for being kind of a serial venture builder. So I sort of got into angel investing right after my MBA, and so I was just kind of really craving for that next chapter in my life, something that I could really learn, sink my teeth into, and so that was back in 2014, and someone suggested, why don't you join an angel network? And it was something I never thought of, although I was always very much interested in investing in innovation. I was very much interested in venture capital and private equity. But my day job, was completely the opposite thing. My job entailed talking to global institutional investors, pension funds, hedge funds, talking about the market, very kind of transactional, talking about new bond issues in the market. So very liquid, publicly listed securities. And here I was really interested in almost the opposite product. It's, super private, startups, small companies and innovation. But actually also I want to say that my kind of career reading about, these Asian issuers who would issue corporate debt, how they started from very humble beginnings. And it was really sort of the Asian growth story started by, a lot of these issuers were, Asian families that started small and just kind of grew into these ginormous, conglomerates. So that really kind of excited me. And so that kind of prompted me to kind of go into angel investing. And so concurrently, I had worked on the first green bond for a corporate in Asia Pacific. And that was for me also a huge turning point, because that was kind of the light bulb went off. And I said, wow, I can do something that I know, but yet follow my purpose and focus on doing something more mission driven. So that got me thinking. And a year later, I left banking to start my own impact investing platform with my husband. And we started looking at Southeast Asia, frontier Asia, looking at these innovation ecosystem and what we could do as impact investors that would be additional in that. So since then, so we've really kind of invested in for-profit and mission-focused companies focused on frontier Southeast Asia. We focus on financial inclusion, sustainable fashion, education, and the gender lens space. And through that, because of the gender lens space that kind of I'm involved in, and also when you invest kind of with an impact kind of lens, there tend to be a lot more women founders actually in the space. And I was looking at my portfolio recently, and I think it's like 75% of my portfolio has a woman founder or co-founder, which is way higher than most portfolios. And so I think the impact lens is a natural lens, and that kind of lends itself to the gender lens space. And so all of those things, being an angel investor, being an impact investor, focused on the gender lens space and financial inclusion and all those other wonderful sectors that I look at, really brought me to Sophia. And the last thing I will say is that I co-founded a nonprofit community in Hong Kong called Girls Just Want to Have Funds. And this is really, it's a nonprofit community.
I love the name, by the way.
Thank you. I appreciate it. We appreciate that. It's such a great community. We are now around 400 women, and it's really a community for community, financial education, and empowerment. And it's really there to close the gender investing gap, which sadly very much exists. Thanks to the gender pay gap, we make less money than men. The gender investing gap, we are not invested as much as men are, and we are also much more careful investors because of the gender pay gap. We make less money, and then there's also the gender funding gap. So Girls Just Want to Have Funds really is focused on the gender investing gap, and it's really about building community for mindset and action.
And it's interesting, that how there's so many women in this space, right? The sustainable and the ESG and all this. Yeah. So does it mean that women care more about this?
Yes.
Compared to men?
Yes.
Yes.
That's the short answer. Yes.
Yes.
we really believe in preserving our earth, right? Keeping Mother Earth clean and green for the future generations.
Correct.
It's sustainability, but it's really also a lot of social issues. It's poverty eradication. It's healthcare, inclusive finance. I mean, it's a whole suite of kind of impact kind of issues that women actually really do care about. So I think it's nice to see that this is certainly one space where we are seeing a lot more women, both as founders and funders.
And now, Tanya.
Yes.
How did you end up here in Asia?
I've learned something from this podcast, because this is the second time it's happened. Me following Christine is always a disaster. I need to go first.
That's not true.
It's so true. It's so true.
That is not true. That is not true, Tanya.
Oh,
You're just as unique.
I'm unique for sure. So thank you, Krista. I started my career in London, and I wanted the safest, solid, kind of sensible career going. And so I went into law. And I discovered that it wasn't for me. And although I did stay there for almost 15 years, and I worked in London, I worked in Sydney, and then I moved from. I actually ran a project when I was in the law firm in London, not the law firm that I was in when I left, but one previous to that. And I was in big corporate law firms, so huge, big, world's largest corporate law firms. And I ran a project, and this is what really piqued my interest in the gender equality piece, because before that, I can't say that I was particularly knowledgeable about it. So I was probably around 30 years old, and I ran a study on where were all the women lawyers, and you really didn't need a study to know, right? I think that we do so many studies these days. Like there's always a report coming out around, women not receiving this and women not receiving. We all know that, right? I think we need to stop studying and actually do something. But anyway, I digress. I ran this 6 month or so report and investigation into. We had all these women. We were hiring women into law at a rate of 50-50. So 50% trainees were women and 50% were men. But when you look at our partnership, we had I think it was 98% male partnership. So what was happening? Well, what was happening was women were working in big corporate, transactional departments, and then inevitably they were having children and working 24 hours a day around the clock at a moment's notice, funnily enough, do not go hand in hand. And even women that don't have children, actually, they opt out, because who actually wants that life? And not many people do these days. And I think, I came away, I presented my findings of the study, and I distinctly remember this one partner. He purposely fell asleep during my revealing of the summary, just to show me that he was ignoring it. And I came away and I just thought, and others were just on their Blackberries at the time. And I just came away with some real fire in my belly, because I knew what the problems were before this study. I did the study anyway. The findings were obvious. We need to do, change the way we're working, allow more flexibility, et cetera, and talk about women in a different way and include them in conversations, and stop having all your networking on the golf course, because it just doesn't appeal. And I came away and I felt like that was my calling. So I moved law firms, and I then moved to Singapore, which was around 5 years ago. And when I got here, I started to make some investments on my own, just one-off investments. And I was really enjoying it, because having been, almost institutionalized within a big corporate, you didn't really get a lot of access to the business side, the commercial side of business. And so I was really enjoying it, because I realized that I had skills that were transferable, not just for working within a law firm. And yet I was learning something different on every angel investment, because it was obviously within all different sectors. We were sector agnostic. And so I decided that I should grow a team of people like me to invest into founders. And when I scratched the surface in Singapore, and Singapore is not unique on this issue, I realized that there were no women receiving funding, or very few women. And when I started to do my research, this has piqued my interest, because of that fire in my belly that I came away from London with. And so I set out to set up a team to invest into women entrepreneurs across Southeast Asia, and grew that team, and eventually said, you know what, there is a lot of talent here in Asia, despite what people think, which is, well, the women are not receiving money for their businesses because they don't exist. Which, if you look at Christine and her portfolio of 75% women, she's operating in a space where she's surrounded herself with women. So guess what? There are women founders, and there are plenty of women founders. It's just that the current ecosystem of investors they're just looking in the same places that they've always looked. And it's not appealing for women. Pitch days, demo days, all of this, Shark Tank, all these words, like who's signing up to that? I'm not signing up to that. I don't want to be part of that type of thing. So, I think we just have to be a little bit more, we have to evolve our thinking around how to attract good founders, right? Men and women. And so it's not that same old Silicon Valley bro culture language. We evolve as humans, because the ecosystem is evolving, and generations are evolving, and so we have to evolve with it. So I evolved into a fund, Her Capital, and then I quickly realized that there was a huge, I would say, bias, an inherent bias towards traditional looking funds. And what I mean by that is, when venture capital funds receive their money from their investors, they're getting it from institutional investors. Now, institutional investors are sitting there in their ivory towers saying, okay, well, who are we going to put this money into? And it's safe for them to put that into funds that look like the funds that they've always invested into. And it's not necessarily the women-led funds, because women are only 2.5% of all fund managers globally. So, that's a bit new for them. It's a bit, pioneering. And then furthermore, if you're a female fund manager and you want to invest into, do impact investing or gender lens investing, etc., you're just blown their minds. So getting access to funding for a fund like that is near on impossible. And so it turned my attention to women as investors. And then that's when I quickly realized that there was a gap in knowledge that I think I can feel, and Christine, along with Christine and Nicole. And so that's how I've ended up with Sophia.
So that's the short version of it.
That's the short version. Shall we now do the long version?
I'll be very interested to hear the long version. But how was it for you when you were with Her Capital? I mean, I know you uncovered all these things as you were running Her Capital. Was it hard to say goodbye?
Yes and no. Yes, at the time, because I must admit, when I set up Her Capital, I mean, it was 2 weeks before COVID-19 hit in Singapore. So, timing was obviously epic. But I was incredibly optimistic, super passionate. And I really genuinely, hand on heart, felt that the answer to more female founders receiving funding was in putting in, female fund managers like me. And I didn't really anticipate the challenges of fundraising in the way that transpired, because I didn't want to believe that we lived in a world that was so biased. And so what happened throughout my time at Her Capital is I actually became more and more cynical about the world. And I realized the really deep-rooted problems with flowing capital in the same way that we've always flowed capital, and what that means for us as women. Okay, so every product and service we've used today, who's created that? Is there any females in the innovation? I suspect not, right? This app we're using to record this podcast, like everything around us, where are the women in this? Because if women are not being funded and there's no women receiving money, are we living in a world that's built by men for men? And if we're 51% of the population, how does that make any sense? We're completely excluded, and that's just not good enough. So I became so frustrated at Her Capital. So I really had to channel that frustration into something better, right? Something that was more positive, and something that was actually going to make a difference. And so that difference was actually, I'm going to work with women, because I think that that's the key here. So it was hard to say goodbye because was so optimistic. But now I look back, I couldn't imagine being back there. Like, this is exactly where I want to be and where I should be.
Journey, Tanya.
Yeah.
It's an evolution.
Yeah.
So when you were talking just now about the demos and the pitch and all those good stuff, I wanted to ask you, if you could reimagine it for female founders, what would it be like? Would it be like those Shark Tank, situations?
Look, I mean, I think we need to take a step back, and I mean, we need to basically look at the entire fundraising process, right? Because this fundraising process has been built for a certain type of startup in a way, right? A male, a sort of tech kind of focused startup. And I think no investor wants to think that they've got biases. I think every investor will say, oh, no, I really care that it's the right pain point, it's the stellar management team, yada, yada. But we all know that if we peel the onion, women apparently get asked different questions than men do, right? So I don't know if, I forget the TED Talk now, but it's such a landmark TED Talk where the questions women get are more about how can you make sure that you don't lose money? So it's all kind of like, how can you manage the risk? Whereas men get more sort of revenue focused questions and growth questions, like how big can you grow this? How big is the blue sky for you? And this is completely unfair because this is a different picture that you paint about the company and the leadership. So I think that's certainly one change that we can make is educate both founders and funders about the fact that there is bias across the process, and what are these unconscious biases? What do they look like, and how to manage them? That would be the first thing. But I mean, back to what your comment, Krista, about Shark Tank and this demo days. I mean, there are lots of women who thrive under that. Let's be honest, right? There are women who kill it. So for me, it's actually more about how can we build a more equitable playing field where you get an equal chance to get that funding, right? So to really, I think we have to go much deeper and look at the end-to-end process.
There has to be a process, right? There has to be something. So if investors have chosen that it's a 3-minute pitch, then it's a 3-minute pitch. But I think we have to acknowledge that for a lot of women, that's not somewhere that they want to sign up to, right? And also, if you think about it objectively, if you've been building a business day and night, blood, sweat, and tears for months and months, if not years, and you're given 3 minutes, it's actually quite rude, right? I could not portray why Sophia is the best on the market in 3 minutes. I mean, I could give it a go, but it doesn't do it justice what we've put into this and what we actually offer, and the nuances and the detail of why us. So I think that's part of the problem, and that's really sort of gender agnostic, I guess.
Okay, so means there should be a different way of doing things, right?
Well, I mean, what's wrong with a conversation? Like a conversation, right? An actual 2 people in a room, or however many people in a room, and you're discussing, right? You're talking about the business, but it's a 2-way conversation. It's not stand up and present, right? We all know that. I mean, I certainly was one of these children that did very well in the classroom, put me under pressure in an exam, and I just fall apart. And I've probably evolved from that now as an adult, but like, we're not all the same. So doing the same thing, whatever that thing is, just doesn't make any sense, because we thrive in different environments. So, I mean, yes, okay, we can do a 3-minute presentation, but not everything should be weighted on a 3-minute presentation. Have a 45-minute conversation thereafter or before, and make an informed, inclusive decision. So I'm not saying rule it out and let's do away with that. I mean, I would like that, but it's not going to happen. But there's just other things that we can factor in as well.
Okay. Absolutely. It needs to be a much more nuanced and fair process. I mean, you're right, Tanya. I mean, it shouldn't just be do the 6-minute, the 3-minute, or the 6-minute with the 5-minute Q&A. We should think about the whole. Maybe there's a meeting before, there's a meeting after, there's an opportunity to meet for coffee. I think we need to basically build a process where it's different. You're learning different things about this founder and why this business is going to win.
Okay. So I would see that even that a better way of doing things, a way that understands what the founders are doing and what their businesses are all about. I think that's a better way. Okay, right now, what do you think women don't do enough of? I know you're going to probably say learn about finance, but what other things do you think women don't do enough of?
Talk about money. You've said that. You just don't. I'll tell the story. For Girls Just Want to Have Fun, I was kind of preparing my remarks for one of our events, and I was going to say, yes, I have all these talk to a woman friend about money. And my husband said to me, he goes, quite frankly, you only have one woman friend who you talk to money with. I was like, no. He goes, yes. And this person didn't start her life out as a friend. This person was actually a client. So you were primed to talk about money. And I was like, you're right. And again, myself included, I just didn't have enough women to speak to about money. And I didn't think that this was at all important. And I really had this aha moment. And we need to. It's not just for ourselves, but it's for all of us. We need to basically talk about money, because if we don't, the entire value chain that I've just described, the gender pay gap, we need to have pay transparency, right? The gender investing gap and the gender funding gap. We need to be able to talk about money, share information, and have those kinds of conversations that, frankly, men do very easily.
Okay, so still money. Let's talk money then. Everyone's talking money.
It's not that that's the only thing we should talk about. I think the point is, it needs to be equally as important as talking about the other things that you normally talk about with your friends.
Okay. Now, what's that big, hairy, audacious goal for Sophia?
Your eyes just went really big.
No, they're just naturally big. So, I mean, we've probably got an answer each on this, but for me, it's to be the go-to platform for women. Like, for when women are thinking about taking control of their financial wellness, when they're looking to make an impact with their money instead of just sitting on it in the bank, when they want to be part of an ecosystem that with like-minded women who and want to be part of something on a journey, as to use Christine's phrase, on a journey together, then they think of us. That's our vision, right? We're launching in Hong Kong, Singapore, and Australia. But with a view to broadening that to the rest of Southeast Asia. Now, our products are largely online, so they can be purchased anywhere essentially. But we're looking to bring this to the world in its entirety, because there's, if you're learning about financial wellness, it's generally, a couple of countries excluded, it's generally universal, right? So the skills that we're looking to share. So to be that go-to place that people are thinking about. And for me personally, like, this is not going to make us, $10 billion in the next year. But for me, what's really important is that we're seen as the company that is lifting up other women, right? Whether that's founders or funders, because that to me is really at the heart of our mission, which is to actually make an impact. That's where I'm placing a lot of importance on this, because that's where I want to, in 10 years' time, look back and say, yeah, I made a difference, and I did that, and look what I achieved, and look at that difference, look where we've got to. And so that's a big part of it for me as well.
Just to add to that, 100% agree with Tanya. And it's a ripple effect. We want to create the most audacious, gigantic ripple effect. But it has to start with one woman, one founder, one funder at a time, spreading the word and creating that really amazing ripple effect.
And if both of you didn't meet and start Sophia, what would you be doing individually?
Probably the same thing, which is why we decided to just join forces, because the reality is, this is a huge need in the market. And that's actually how we started talking in the first place. We were just, I don't know that we were necessarily thinking to do something with each other, right? I mean, Tanya, I don't know if you remember this, but I think our very first conversation was, let's brainstorm. Like, let's help each other think about things that we should each, be doing, right? And what are the needs that we're seeing in the market? It was like a brainstorm.
Yeah.
The answer was not Sophia was not a foregone conclusion. So I think it has to start with women getting together, mind share.
I would be the lead singer of a band on tour.
Really?
Yes.
See, we have uncovered some secret desires.
But first I would have some actual singing talent. So I should caveat that. So first, talent, and then the job. Yeah.
What's the craziest thing that each of you have done? It doesn't have to be business, can be anything else. I mean, Tanya just prompted me to ask that question.
I mean, no offense, Krista, but I'm not sure I'm able to share the craziest thing I've ever done in a public podcast.
Okay, the second one.
But I will share an experience that I forced myself to do that was completely outside of my personal box. Comedy has been something that, I think I'm decently funny, but only with a close knit group of people. I think I think I can do like a couple people, make them laugh. That's okay. But I struggle. I really struggle with being that like super funny, super smooth, comedic speech maker. And that's just never been my skill. And I remember my dad used to always say, Christine, if you can't be funny, just be sincere. So I'm always, that's kind of always in the back of my mind. I'll be sincere because I'm not sure I can be funny. So this year, there's this stand-up comedy class that I've really been wanting to take, I want to say for the last 10 years, ever since I found out about it. So there's a comedy club in Hong Kong called Takeout Comedy. And, I think Jamie, the founder, I think he started, I think he kind of brands it like as Asia's first stand-up comedy because he started it in the 90s. So it's been here forever, same location. Anyway, so he runs like a stand-up comedy class every month. And so I kind of said this year, I was like, you know what? I want to do something interesting and different and actually just put myself out there because this is really like for me, like cringy. I'm like, oh, stand-up comedy, so hard. So I did it. And I thought it was going to be like a big class, or maybe like at least 5 people. Writes me back immediately. So I did it in April for my birthday. And he writes me back and he says, "Oh, it's our X anniversary for doing this class. So you get buy one, get one free." So I said to my husband, "Let's do it together." Um, and when we got there, it was just the two of us because COVID.
So you got personalized
No pressure.
service.
Yes, but I have to tell you, so it was just this like eye-opening experience because comedy is actually very scientific. Oh God, I forgot I mean I have to like look at my notes, but in the first minute you got to get something like 6 laughs or something. I mean that is a lot of pressure. But I will say this: I think the one thing that I learned from stand-up comedy, it's really hard. Putting yourself out there is really hard, but you have to do it because if you don't do it, you're never going to get better, right? And you're never gonna kind of push yourself to be better at presenting and communicating. And so this last thing I will say about that experience was that apparently, when comics kind of do their last sort of spiel, it's a 3 joke structure, right? And this is how you're supposed to do it. So apparently this is also a good tip for like presentation. So you start with your third least funny joke. Oh no, sorry, your second least funny joke. You get last, 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 last. Then you go with your second least funny joke. And then you end with your best joke. And now I think about that every time. So yeah, it was hard to do. And I haven't completed my homework, which is I got to write my bit, and I actually have to get coaching from Jamie. And apparently, I have to go to a local kind of open mic and just bare my soul. And apparently, you're supposed to be very self-deprecating, like beyond. You have to insult yourself so that you get like the audience to like feel sorry for you, so they'll laugh at you. So
I can see Tanya's face going like, "Oh my God."
This is so funny.
I have to do all these things, and it's in my to-do list. But first, gotta launch Sophia.
Yes, yes, that first, and then the comedy club, right?
Yes.
Okay, so for the both of you, this is really non-business related at all. But if you could turn back the clock and knowing what you now know, what would you tell a younger version of yourself?
I would probably tell myself that I would probably encourage myself to find my voice earlier on. So I think for me, it's confidence in my own voice has only come in the last couple of years. And I think that I was always struggling with believing that what I thought was valuable and valid, and that I needed external validation. And what I've learned is actually I do know some stuff. So I think I wish I had found that earlier on.
Christine?
Oh, you're looking at me. Okay. I know I bang on about this a lot. I think I wish I had been more focused on investing at a much younger age. And I remember, I think when you think about, how you grew up, it actually does kind of shape your views about money. And, my father was in finance. So it wasn't like, we didn't have like collective knowledge around investing. But I think my dad's view was very much that it was something that I had to be interested in myself. And it wasn't something he was going to kind of say, "Oh, you should be doing this," right? So that was his view. Um, and the other thing also was my parents were just got burned with real estate investing. So it was always not the thing they wanted me to do, right? So it was weird. So you carry all these biases about kind of, what your parents experienced, how you grew up, and it does color your view. So I think I only, and this is weird, and actually you'll hear this from a lot of women in finance, right? I'm sitting in front of a Bloomberg, terminal, talking to the world's most sophisticated investors. And because I was so restricted about what I could invest in on my personal account, I just kind of didn't. And I really only had, my MPF, my retirement. And I just didn't push myself enough. And it was only when I left banking that I was like, what am I doing? I've done myself a real disservice. And that's why with Girls Just Want to Have Funds, this is something that we are all, as co-founders and our leadership team and our community, we're so passionate about really getting women to think that it is a disservice. You cannot be leaving, your entire fortune in your bank account. That is a disservice to you because your rate of inflation is eating at the hard-earned money that you've earned. And so I think the expectation is also that, investing in the stock market is so risky. But the reality is, the S&P 500 has returned on average 8% every year, including some of the most volatile periods in the world's history, like World War II, for example. So I think that, and the Great Depression. So I think, that is what I wish I would tell my younger self. I would, really just I should have been much more aggressive with investing, but it's not too late. And that is hope for us all. And that's why, with angel investing, I was just, so passionate about teaching myself it, reading anything I could, talking to every experienced angel investor that I met. And I think because I went through this process of self-education, that I really want to make sure that everyone, women especially, that I can share that with them.
Love your answer.
I'm guessing, Krista, that you've only got through half the questions because, as you can tell, Christine and I have a lot to say. We're equally as passionate about this. We have a lot of things to get off our chest, and our stories are not short. So I apologize that we've only got through half the agenda.
It's okay. We can bring you both back on again.
We would love seasons.
That. So, finally, what's that one key takeaway that you want our listeners to remember as a result of listening to our conversation today? I know both of you have said a lot, and I have yet to dig into Tanya's story. I know there's lots in her story and her background. I've yet to dig into Christine's story, but yes, we have come to the top of the hour, so we just need both of you to, kind of give us that final thing that you want listeners to remember.
So mine's really short, which you're going to be shocked by, of course. And that is, I have two sayings that I live by and that I would love people to take with them as well. One is the Latin, fortune favors the bold or brave, depending on your interpretation. But I really believe that. And I think that really serves me well when I'm thinking about decisions. And the second thing is, I don't know if you remember, there was a very famous tweet, and it was around organic raspberries. And it said, every time you go into a negotiation as a woman and you're scared to ask for what you really want, think about the audacity of organic raspberries and the price that they ask for a 7-ounce container of organic raspberries. And think about that audacity and take that with you into the negotiation room. So that's it.
I love those, Tanya. Those are just...
I like that organic raspberry thing. Okay, Christine.
I think the one thing I would say is that nothing is rocket science except for rocket science. And I think, everyone thinks, investing is so hard. No, it's not. But you just have to surround yourself with like-minded people and understand that there's a lot to learn and just get through it and just do it. So that's my thing. And the second thing is nobody teaches. Let me make sure I'm quoting this. Actually, my friend said this to me a long time ago, and it's something I carry with me every day. No one teaches anyone else better how to respect you than you. It is up to you to tell people talk about your boundaries, to ask for what you want. Don't expect other people to do it for you, right? Only you do that. You teach other people. So that's it.
Well said, Christine and Tanya. I love both your final takeaways. They're cute, but at the same time, really powerful. And finally, of course, where can people find the both of you online?
SophiaWomen.com.
We're there every day.
If there's any other place, would you want them to look for you on LinkedIn or any other social media?
Sure.
Yeah, sure. I use LinkedIn all the time.
Absolutely. Send me a LinkedIn request, Christine Yu.
Okay. So thank you, Christine. Thank you, Tanya. I mean, this is an interesting and enlightening conversation that we have had. Lots of laughter, lots of fun, and I learned about comedy too.
Take a class. It's really good for your soul.
So thank you to the both of you for being here with me and talking about the importance of learning for ourselves, really, truly learning for ourselves and learning how to take care of ourselves by investing in the right kinds of companies and businesses for the future.
Thank you, Krista. Thank you for having us.
Thank you so much, Krista, for having us. It's been such a pleasure.
Thank you. What's your take on women, money, and investing after listening to today's episode? Share this with me when you head on over to our website for all the show notes at womenpreneurs.asia.com. If you're sharing this on your social media, please use the hashtag WomenpreneurAsia and do take our quick survey when you're at our website. I'd love to hear what you think of all our episodes. In next week's episode, I'll be speaking to two sisters, Michelle and Melissa Sin of SKB Shutters Corporation Berhad, who run their grandfather's roller shutter manufacturing business in Malaysia. Their grandfather, Mr. Sin Kian Bun, from which SKB derives its name, started the business in a Penang shophouse back in 1957. Today, 64 years later, it is based in Kuala Lumpur, and Michelle and Melissa Sin are the two sisters who comprise the third generation running the company. How do these two sisters do it? We'll find out in next week's episode.